Welcome back to another episode of Biking and Blabbing. I'm Cycling Mike. This is episode 6. So yeah, it's kind of getting ready to start to rain. I got a bit of a flat tire, but I figured I'd deal with that later and film the episode for everybody. So again, I did the Scrabble thing, the Scrabble game, and I came up with 3 words for this episode, which are unity, goo, and what was this other one? Oh, and waves. Sorry, I forgot that for a second. So those are the 3 words to this episode, and that kind of gave me a lot to play with, especially goo. I sort of look at whenever I play the game, I look at what would work. Okay, these would work. This would work. I can talk about. I have topics. I have places I can go for each of the words. So that's important, because if I didn't, then you guys wouldn't get an episode. So yeah. So I guess we can start off with. Yeah, let's start with. So as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, so playing one of the words, I did a chalk festival, and the piece I did was from the cartoon show Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and one of the characters, or one of the episodes on that show was an episode called Go Go Goo, which is this episode about this little girl who has like the greatest imagination. She just fills the house with so many imaginary friends, and I remember watching that episode. I think I remember when I watched that episode, I watched it at like the 11 o'clock hour, because the way my Friday nights worked back in the day, I always bounced between Sci-Fi and Cartoon Network. And sometimes I'd watch, like, I think Cody and Kids Next Door was on like at 7 o'clock, so I was able to watch that before like SG1 came on. It would be Stargate SG1, by the way. And then it'd be like and then it would be Atlantis at 9, and this was before they reran Foster's at 10 o'clock. All the shows got reruns, but I always like to watch the Sci-Fi stuff first, because those reruns went later than the Fridays, which is the show that they had on Cartoon Network ran. So that was how I sort of spent my Friday nights. I'd do like Farscape and Stargate, and then I'd, or start off with, I would start off with Cartoon Network, and then I would turn to Sci-Fi around 8 o'clock, of course, would be when I turned to Sci-Fi, unless there'd be a 7 o'clock show I'd want to watch. Even further back in the day, before there was a Fridays, or should I say before? Yeah, I think. Oh no, not before there was a Fridays. I think Fridays actually started at 8 o'clock, but when it was getting going, it was 7 to like 11. They would rerun they would re-air the Fridays episode or whatever. But it was always cool. I always liked Tommy and Zynga, and I know they had another girl before Zynga, and I can't remember what her name was. But yeah, so that was the way my Fridays worked. And so, getting back to the point, Go Go Goo I watched at 11 o'clock instead of at 7, or instead of at 8:30, whenever it would have aired. And I always really liked the episode. I think it's probably my favorite Goo story. Well, Bust the Two of Us is great, but that's not really a story. Everything after Goo isn't really a story focused around Goo, though. And I was really surprised that late on they added such a new character, because it's like season 3, which is late to add a character that would become, a recurring character in the series. I think by this point I think part of it was they had gone through all their Duchess material, and because after Duchess of Wales, they pretty much stopped doing stories with her where she was a part of the story, where she was, at the forefront of the story, where the story was about her, rather. So this was just such an interesting episode, and it's not really, the great thing about Foster's is which is sort of the highlight of kind of a great cartoon show is it's not really, Go Go Goo isn't really funny, haha funny. I mean, it's funny in what she creates, but it's just, the episode idea is really what makes the episode such a standout, and what she creates. Like, all the art in it is really cool, because she just comes up with all these, imaginary friends, and the stuff that the art team draws is incredible. I always kind of liked her outfit. I think it sort of represents, her creativity really well, with all the rainbow colors. I was just thinking it would have been interesting if had they made that today and used those colors. Those colors, of course, are now the rainbow colors are now, of course, the colors of the LGBTQ flag. And if they had made that today, it would be interesting if that was sort of a way to allude to the fact that, I don't know, maybe she's too young, but like might have been a lesbian in some way, or bisexual, just as like an inclusion aspect. But like I said, it was rainbow colors for the metaphor of giant big imagination. Anyways, so that was one of the iconic episodes I remember watching back in the day, and that was on, I think it was on at 10 o'clock, because that was back when I was not watching BSG, Battlestar Galactica, that is. And of course I since realized I was wrong and regret that hugely. But anyways, so that was sort of the way that episode came out, and I saw it again after that, because it was always times after Fridays were just aired Foster's. That was always one of the things that sort of upsets me about the new Cartoon Network, is I sort of wish they would have like a Boomerang hour again. And I believe later on, Boomerang as a network, of course, picked up Foster's, which I was very happy about. I only found that out from from a friend of mine. But yeah, I kind of want them to go back as a network to the Boomerang style. Not necessarily Boomerang, but just the style of airing old stuff for like 2 or 3 hours in the morning. Because I would watch that. Like, I would watch that. My problem with Cartoon Network, my whole thing about it is, it's not that I don't like cartoons. This is not, if I was, I sit and watch Adult Swim stuff all the time, but I'm not sitting and watching it because it's adult. I'm sitting and watching it because it's, a cartoon. It's, it's a different thing. And if it's, if I don't like the cartoon, then that's one thing. But if they had like a Rick and Morty, not necessarily, writing wise, because that's not a child's TV show, but if they had a show with that kind of art, it would absolutely change the, I think it would help the network out, because I've seen some stuff like The Amazing World of Gumball. I'm sorry, it's not that good. It might be funny and all, but the art is, and actually I thought it was bad back when Chowder was on, but I realized Chowder's okay, and I sort of wish we had gone back to it, because the thing about Foster's and Codename Kids Next Door and Powerpuff Girls, and what else? All this, Johnny Bravo, Dexter's, all those cartoons. Of course, I know Johnny Bravo has a Hanna-Barbera, and even Dexter's Lab has a Hanna-Barbera element to it. But all those cartoons were well drawn and well crafted and put together. Nickelodeon has actually done a better job in terms of keeping to that good cartooning style. Like, none of their stuff would have like a live action donut in it. Everything they do, the Loud House and La Casa Grandes, all that stuff is well animated. It's it's still good cartooning. SpongeBob, of course, I think is great cartooning, in the way that show's put together. But so they, as a network, they've kept to it, which is funny because they were always the ones that were bouncing between live action and cartoons back in the day, and they still had good stuff. There was always this debate whether or not you were a Nickelodeon or a Cartoon Network kid. I was definitely more a Cartoon Network kid. I would watch SpongeBob, of course, but everybody watched SpongeBob, so it's like whatever. But I was definitely more of a Cartoon Network kid. I for some reason, maybe it was because they sort of went on because Cartoon Network went down the superhero path. I mean, I would watch some Nickelodeon stuff. I had a friend of mine that got me into Jimmy Neutron, but of course, everything that I watched, every other show that I watched Nickelodeon-wise, I got into because of a friend of mine, except for SpongeBob, I think. Yeah, except for SpongeBob. Everything else, like Avatar I got into because of a friend of mine. Jimmy Neutron I got into because of a friend of mine. What else? The X's I sort of found, but that was when I was watching, that was when they had the Friday Night Nicktoons. Interestingly enough, both networks had Friday night, big new cartoon shows. It would be Jimmy Neutron, and there'd be new Jimmy Neutron, and Danny Phantom, which I was never really a fan of Danny Phantom. I remember liking, I think this was the one show I actually did that nobody actually had to clue me into, was Invader Zim. But that was like, that even predated SpongeBob, because SpongeBob came out in '99. Anyways, and then a friend of mine got me into Robot Jones. I mean, so the thing about Cartoon Network is, and even Nickelodeon, is like, I'm not a Loud House fan. I've seen a couple episodes. It's alright, it's fine. It's well drawn. That's sort of my thing. But the thing about Cartoon Network is that even the shows that I wasn't a fan of, at least it was still better cartooning than what they have now. I mean, Billy and Mandy was well drawn. I love Billy's giant nose. It's like, what kind of kid has a nose that big? So all that stuff was. I miss Juniper Lee too. That was a great show. But that was a short-lived show. All the stuff that I really, except for maybe Foster's, all the other shows I really liked were all, some of them on Cartoon Network were short-lived. But yeah, Juniper Lee was one of the shows I was like, oh my god, I gotta watch this. I always loved the whole fantasy element to it. I think it really worked as a show. But yeah, and even like later on I would watch Total Drama Island. I mean, it was stupid, but I'd watch it. That was an accidental find. I was like, what's on Cartoon Network? Oh, Total Drama Island's on. So I watched that. I was like, why do I like this show? It's sort of live action, Big Brother or Survivor type, or not live, this sort of cartoon element, riffing on Survivor and Big Brother, mostly Survivor. But it's funny, it was so weird, and I sort of enjoyed the hell out of it. And the fact that he eliminated people, and they brought the characters back again after they eliminated them, but they never came up with other characters, which I was kind of like, eh. But I mean, that added to the drama, I guess. So even that was well animated. Flapjack, which I never cared for, was alright in the way it was animated. But yeah, so now, if I actually wanted to, because just the thing about cartoons. There's cartoons that are, there's cartoons that are for babies and whatnot, and they're for certain age groups and everything. And then there are just like regular cartoons that kids can watch. They're sort of family oriented, and that's kind of where I put like Foster's or SpongeBob and stuff like that. I put it in sort of the family oriented, because SpongeBob's getting to the point now where it's a generational show because it's been on so long. But yeah, so there's other than, there's a lot of cartoons that, like, now that, you can watch that are, family oriented and fine, they're actually good, but they're all on Nickelodeon. I know people like Teen Titans Go. I'm sorry. It's not that good. Original Teen Titans is better. And that's actually part of the problem with my Cartoon Network upset, is they dumb down a lot of their cartoons. I don't know if they're worried about ages, like just sort of offending people, or if it's not kid enough, or they're worried. I mean, because in a lot of ways, like, the original Teen Titans is very much a preteen show. But even still, it's like, it was a solid, show. Actually, if you want to really talk about the glory days of Cartoon Network, it was, Toonami on the weekdays, which then of course turned into Magoozy. And that's actually one of my other bitches about Cartoon Network, is this whole thing of sticking Toonami on at midnight. It's like, no, that should be, back in the day, that was a 7 to 11 time slot, and then Adult Swim started at 11, and 7 o'clock would be like all the new stuff, 8 o'clock would be like Justice League, or Justice League Unlimited. See, all that stuff, like Harley Quinn, all that stuff now is either, this is actually one of my other problems, which I know this is a DC thing and not really a Cartoon Network thing, but all the stuff that used to be like, alright for preteens, the kids to watch, well animated DC shows, they've all sort of turned adult, and I don't know if it's because they know, well, I mean, I'm assuming it's because they know that generation's growing up, but it should still be, and I guess they have something, I know they have comics for kids, and I'm assuming there's something on the DC Universe app for kids, but it should be stuff like, it should be done the way that original Justice League was done, or Justice League Unlimited, where there's no swearing or anything, but it's just a well-written cartoon show. It's not dumbing anybody down. So, yeah, and so the Toonami thing was always good, because I really liked it, I think, better when it was on Saturday nights. It was easier for me to watch. I used to watch it on the weekdays. The weekdays, when they ran it, I remember falling in love with Cyborg 009 and Big O and Yu Yu Hakusho, all that anime. See, now, because it's on so late, I don't really watch as much anime as I used to. But when it was on Saturday nights, I was just talking about this with somebody last night. But when it was on Saturday nights, I used to watch, they had the one year they did the month of Miyazaki stuff. And the films, I believe, were Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, I believe it was Castle in the Sky, and My Neighbor Totoro. Unless it was Howl's Moving Castle, which, I don't know, I think it was Castle in the Sky. Anyways, it might have been Howl's. Anyways, that month was, just amazing. And I only got to watch the first night, because the following week I was off festing, I believe, and then the week after that I was either doing something else, or parent had controlled the TV, or I just flat out forgot about it. But so even stuff like that, like movies like those, they're, and Princess Mononoke is violent. I mean, that's a violent movie. But and Howl's is, if they ran Howl's is really, really dark. But Spirited Away, I mean, I guess maybe other than Yubaba and No Face, it's it's very much a family-oriented movie. Of course, I'm sure now it's expensive to run something like that on Cartoon Network. That's the other problem, is networks like Cartoon Network and Sci-Fi have fallen to the wayside because of, I think largely because of a lot of the properties that knew they had value on the network, or like, hey, we can go to this on other, like DC is a perfect example of that. The DC Universe app is like, here, pay for our app, and you'll get all the cartoons you want from DC And you know, Marvel was the same way. Like they ran the Iron Man show on Nickelodeon, and now Marvel would do the same thing. So all the companies that came up with iconic stuff just gone. Oh, that's the other thing. There was So the other. So if we're gonna go into more sort of maybe we just should, because gone on about it. Forget about the other two words. My other cartoon channels growing up, I would never really watch Disney. I watched it when I was a kid when the Aladdin series was on. But of course that went the way of the dodo. And I would watch, so ABC Kids I would watch, which was interesting because ABC Kids at one point added Foster's Home. I remember they ran because they're like, okay, well this is popular. And then I used to watch Foxbox, which turned into 4Kids TV, which at the very beginning of that, they ran a cartoon show, which I still kind of want to see all the episodes of, called Stargate Infinity. And I only watched like one episode of that because like it was shortly canceled after. But Foxbox and 4Kids is where the remade Ninja Turtles was, the '04 Ninja Turtles, which is my Ninja Turtles, not the Ninja Turtles they have on now. Not Rise, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then there's, and then there was ABC Family, which ABC Family I love because ABC Family had the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. They had Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. They had Spider-Man Unlimited is what I believe. No, there's Justice League Unlimited. It was like, I forget what the future show was called. It was like, I never really liked it at first. I was sort of like, eh. But again, that's something that taste, that's very much a change of taste show. I think I would like that more now. Of course, the 90s Spider-Man series was always my favorite. They ran the older the original, like, I think 60s, 70s Spider-Man cartoon too on that network. But that was on like at 6 in the morning, I think. So yeah, the 90s Spider-Man was my go-to. There was a lot of times. Oh, and ABC Family also had all the Power Rangers stuff. I believe I watched all the Red Ranger stuff. The Red Ranger getting together, the super power up, all of the Pool Red Ranger episode, which I believe ended up being a Mighty Morphin episode. But it was it was a big deal when it happened. It was a special. And then, so the other interesting thing about ABC Family was in the mornings they had, on the weekday mornings they had early cartoons from like 7 to 9. And I used to watch Wild Force, the Power Rangers Wild Force, which I think now is probably my favorite Power Rangers. Again, not a giant Power Rangers fan, but I liked Wild Force a lot. That was sort of the show my dad hated. That, of course, isn't a cartoon. See how all this has turned into cartoons? Like, just reminiscing about my childhood TV viewings. So that was that, and then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that like was really an iconic show for me as a kid. There was a lot of stuff I liked for story, even though it was designed for like girls. Well, not a lot, but there was a couple things. Like, that was like, I liked it for story reasons. And it's like, I know this isn't like for me, but I really like this because it's a good show. Can't remember what a lot of those things are. I can't believe I'm admitting that over the internet, but I am. And there was just, I don't know, I saw the potential in the series despite the way it was. There was this fairy show, which I can't remember the name of, which was very popular. I was a Sailor Moon fan. There, I'll just flat out admit that. When I was a kid. And that was the thing, it's like I saw through what it was like meant, like advertised for. And I know that's bizarre, but it's true. I like this. I like the science fiction element to the show, and I just it's one of these things. It's like if you look at it, it's like this is clearly not meant for a young boy. But I was like, I like this show. It's interesting. There's interesting things going on in it, and and I am sometimes reminded of the fact that I like that show. Um, I'm like, yeah, I know, I liked it, whatever. Um, I did. I actually did. There might actually be a time in my life where I will go back and rewatch that stuff, just to go, okay, I know why I like this, and maybe not be as. I mean, the art in that show is great. That show has great art. Um, so yeah, that was always. That was one of them. But so I was able to see through that. As far as Magoozy goes, oh, Code Lyoko I freaking loved. That was a great Magoozy show. That was, they changed from like 2D to 3D animation. And I mean, it would get kind of repetitive because the whole point of going into Lyoko was deactivating the tower. And they needed the girl to go in and deactivate the tower. But I sort of wish that like there was something else you would have to do to sort of change the world back. That was sort of a VR thing before VR was even a thing. And well, rather a VR show before VR was what it is today. Which is really cool thing about it now. That's really a groundbreaking series as far as animation goes. So yeah, Code Lyoko I think was my favorite animation series from Magoozy. That was like their original. And then, oh, the other thing was Fox, when Foxbox started out. They were the first ones to promote and have One Piece on and say, this show has weight, this show is great and really has something to show. I remember watching the premiere of Naruto, which I could do a whole nother episode just on anime and the way anime is perceived, but not because I watch so much, but just because I understand the perception of so many people when they think about that genre of animation. But I remember watching the series premiere of Naruto, and that show was amazing. That show is just really. I remember watching the Gaara episode with the sand. All that stuff was. I haven't watched too much Shippuden, but that show was just something else. And yeah. Again, I'll go into all that anime stuff on another episode. But so I guess I'll end it there, and that is we're not gonna make it to the other two words because Goo just got me going in terms of content and ideas and things that were in my head. I had ideas for the other two words, but if I don't have to use the other two words, I won't use the other two words. And until next episode, I guess this is so long. Farewell, Avitas, and good night. Don't forget to like and subscribe.